The views and opinions on the Craig L. Hayes Show do not necessarily reflect those of Westgate Resorts ownership or management. And now, on with the show.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
All right, welcome back, everybody. This is episode 2 with Ron Stone, and we're going to talk a little bit more about some of his adventures in life, we'll call him, because he's kind of shy, I guess, right now talking about it. He's told all kinds of stories to other people about all his adventures and all his troublemaking skills and what he's done in his past. But we'd definitely like to hear a couple of them. Now, we hit on just real quick that you were in Vietnam. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your military just in a few minutes? Just like tell us kind of what you did and how long you served in different, the branches of the military and what your jobs were a little bit.
Sure. Well, I started out, of course, in the Army, and at that time went right to Vietnam after basic training, and was great. I met up with a few people. I didn't realize that it was quite the honor to fly with General Westmoreland for a short period of time, and then one day we were tasked to go pick up an entertainer to do a show, and we weren't told who it was. We just flew in there and grabbed Bob Hope, put him on the aircraft, flew him in, and put him on stage. He did a show, and it was kind of fun, nice surprises like that. Later on, when I came back, I've always had a love for flying. I mean, I was born to be an aviator, you might say. I just did it all my life, every chance I got. So I transferred to the Air Force and became a flight engineer on C-130s and got to fly pretty much all over the world and enjoyed that. And there were times when it was kind of different. People never think about. I had breakfast in Greenland and got into Nova Scotia in time to have breakfast and flew back to California in time to have breakfast. It just chasing the sun around the globe.
Yeah.
And it's strange, speaking of that, sometimes I remember one time the sun was going down. It was right on the horizon. And we flew for 5 hours with the sun right in our face on the horizon. We were traveling just about the same speed.
Wow. That's but flying. So, but you also are a pilot.
Yeah. Matter of fact, when I got off active duty, I became a flight instructor, and I really enjoyed it. Matter of fact, I had two girl dancers from shows here in Vegas that I taught to fly that both became commercial airline pilots.
Good for you.
So I was pretty pleased with them. And they were good learners, and it was a funny thing about that. I'm kind of getting off the subject here, but the guys tend to want to get in there and drive it like a truck, slam the clutch and hit the brakes and whatever. And women have a lot more finesse, and an airplane is built, any aircraft is built, to be flown by a person with ease. You could do it with 2 fingers. It's not made to drive like a truck.
Yeah.
So female flying an aircraft is just natural. They're better at it, actually.
Well, I have heard that myself, that women pilots are really are good pilots. The guys are all the aggressive, the hot shots, or whatever you want to call it. But, so how long did you stay in the military? 'Cause I know you did your active service in Vietnam. Then you came out, and then how much time total did you spend between reserves and full-time?
Well, between active duty and reserve time, I spent a total of 32 years military time. And I I got to say, I enjoyed 99% of it. There's always that 1% of anything that you're not going to enjoy, but I did. I just thought it was someplace I should be, and I wanted to be there.
And you were doing a lot of that while you were being a stagehand and technical director and all those other things that you were doing too. I mean, you were carrying a double career basically.
I did quite a bit of time, and it was kind of unique in a way that a lot of times I could only teach after the show at 2:00 in the morning. I'd go to the airport with a student that was also, working shows or something, and they were up, and you could fly 2 or 3 hours until sunup and in the dark, and so you're required to get so much nighttime to get your license, and we certainly didn't have any problems accomplishing that.
It sounds like most of it was at night.
It was. But I thought it made them better pilots because during the day it was easy. It's a little more challenging at night.
Yeah, it's always amazed me that in a city like Las Vegas, with as much lights and stuff we have, that people can find in the airport. With all the lights everywhere, how do you pick out an airport? I mean, you kind of know where it's at. You're being, given the directions on where you're supposed to go, but still, there's this little tiny patch of lights someplace in a sea of lights.
Well, runway lights at an airport, any airport, are wired so that your aircraft radio can control those lights, have the intensity up and down. You can turn them on, turn them off. You can make them strobe just with the radio in the cockpit.
From the plane.
Just so you can identify the proper runway.
Oh.
And or find it all together, like you're saying.
So every plane can do that? Like every commercial plane, military, all those planes can do that? I'll be darned.
It's just radio frequency.
Yeah. But you can tell the lights on the air. What happens if there's a bunch of you trying to do it?
Strongest radio wins, I guess.
I guess the closest radio or something, strongest signal. Well, I did not know that. That's, just learned something on this show again. That's why I like doing this show. I learned something from every guest that comes in here, and that's a wow. Had no idea. So let's talk about, how about a couple of the stars that you've worked with? Your wife was talking about Debbie Reynolds and Wayne Newton, and you had a couple stories about them. How about sharing a couple stories with us?
Oh, well, there's always those.
We all have a ton of those. But PG-13, that's what I'm, PG-13.
You mentioned Wayne Newton. I was doing his show, and it was fine, and he's a good entertainer. And I gained some respect for him one day when he was doing a rehearsal right before the show, and he just wasn't paying attention for a second and fell off of the front of the stage and scraped up the side of his leg pretty bad. And they were able to bandage it, and the wardrobe gal fixed the pants. And he went on and did 2 shows that night, and right after that, he went over and got taken care of at the hospital. But he did his shows first, and I thought, well, most people wouldn't do that.
Yeah, show must go on mentality.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I had a friend that was working down at the Golden Nugget when Roy Clark was down there, and Roy Clark was having some health issues. He finished his show, walked out the back door, and collapsed from some kidney problem or something he was having. But he finished the show. He's just one of those, same thing. It's the mentality of the show must go on, must finish my show. People are here, I got to do it. But that doesn't surprise me. I don't know how many of these younger entertainers, we've canceled shows here because somebody had an upset stomach.
Yeah.
One of the band members had an upset stomach. They canceled the show, and it's like, really? Wow.
That didn't used to happen.
No, that was, and if you're Frank Sinatra and you said, hey, I don't feel well, they'd say, okay, fine. But, anybody else would be like, get out there and do your stuff, Different time back then.
No, a lot different.
Yeah, did you ever get to work with the Sinatras and the Dean Martins and all those guys? And
I did. I worked with Frank Sinatra several times, and I thought it was a good one time. The band cart at Caesar's Palace broke down, and we were trying to figure out why the motor wasn't working to run the band cart. And I was on the floor on my stomach halfway under the band cart where the motor was, and all of a sudden I heard a voice right next to me that said, well, what's the matter, Ron? You going to be able to fix it? And I looked around, and there's Frank Sinatra in his tuxedo, and he's laying on the floor right next to me.
how about that? Got down there and just had to see what you were doing, huh?
Yep, just, people don't realize that they're actually just people too.
Yeah. And that's what I try to tell everybody that asks me the same thing. They're just people. They get paid to go sing or dance or whatever. They're just people,
Yep.
So, Wayne Newton. So, your wife said Debbie Reynolds was one. She said there's a good story.
Well, I still like the one with Wayne Newton. Debbie was a pretty good story, but Wayne, one time we were at the Frontier and doing the show, and I reached back to adjust the carbons on the spotlight, and you have to look away for a second. And when I did, for some reason, I leaned back just enough that it was an office type swivel chair that I was in, and the back fell off. And I went over backwards, and my foot just instinctively tried to stop my fall. And my foot went under the spotlight, and it went up to the ceiling of the showroom. And we were putting on quite a light show. And Wayne stopped, and he started laughing because he saw what happened out of the corner of his eye. So I had half the audience turning around trying to figure out what was going on. And I thought, well, this is not going well.
You've had better days, obviously.
Yeah. But the stuff just comes to mind. We were doing Bobby Gentry one time, and we had a river drop that was supposed to come in. It was just like water moving behind her in a river. It was a pretty good look. But the flyman, the guy that runs the scenery in and out, wasn't paying too much attention one night, and he had a moon, this piece that was about the size of a round table, about 3 feet in diameter. It was lit, and it was supposed to come up behind the river like a nighttime scene. Mm-hmm. And he had the wrong rope, and he was slowly pulling the scene out instead of bringing the moon in. So the orchestra is just sitting there on the bandstand looking at everybody. They can't do anything. So we finally got his attention. He didn't have a headset on, but we got his attention through the squawk box. And so all of a sudden, the piece of scenery just came shooting in, and the moon just went flying away. And I said, well,
a little panic moment there.
Okay, I guess that worked, whatever that was.
Wow.
But
Nothing too obvious there.
no.
Nobody saw it. They were looking the other way. Yeah, the stories we all have. It's I wrote the book and told a few and had everybody else tell a few, and it's just this is an amazing business to be in. You know, when you hear the saying, "There's no business like show business," I concur, 100%.
Well, I do too. In just in the fact that if a guy is lucky enough, or a person is lucky enough to find something that they love to do, and then find somebody that'll pay them to do it, you're in. I mean, how could it get any better than that?
Yeah. And that you found it in Seattle, something that you wanted to do in show business, and had the career you did in show business, and
Yeah.
pretty amazing. People come from all over this country. You know, Don Toto was from Boston and got into theater back there, and ends up here doing it, for 40 years in this town.
Yeah.
It's just amazing what you can do, and this is the town to do it in. Discover something, get good at it, and become successful at it.
Yeah.
So, anything else you want to tell us about? Again, any other stories pop into your head that you want to give us before we conclude this interview?
No, I can't think of anything right off the top of my head. It was very nice being here, and I appreciate the opportunity, and maybe we'll do this again someday.
Yeah, no, I'm always open for this because we'll write down some stories and we'll talk about stories. I love stories. I love listening to the stories of people, what they do in show business, because there's so many, and everybody's stories are unique. Even though everyone works on the same stage, everyone will have a unique take on it and a unique story about it.
Yeah. One quick note before we go: you mentioned that I had a wardrobe gal one time was just standing there listening to a couple of guys talk, and I was listening to him. I wasn't paying that much attention, but he was going on and on about this kid that he was working with on stage. Didn't like him, didn't like the way he worked. He was just a sorry individual, and just kept going on. And finally, the wardrobe gal turned around and looked at him and said, "Is there anything else you'd like to say about my son before I go?"
Boom.
Well, that
Boom.
shut him up.
Yeah, what else are you going to say about that? That pretty well concludes that one, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, well, Ron, it's awesome to have you here and tell us a couple stories about your time in show business. And like I say, love to do this again sometime.
Sure.
And we'll have some more stories and anything else you can talk about later, and we'll come up with some more things. This is not just a one-time thing for anybody. This is multiple times when people go, "Oh man, I forgot so much stuff I could tell you about." Good, bring it. Let's go. Let's do it again.
I don't think if you've been in stage business for a long period of time that you ever run out of stories.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Because you've been in it. I did 44 years in the business, and I don't know if I can remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
There's so much of the stuff that went on, but still, it's been great. Well, thank you very much, Ron, and we look forward to the next episode of the Craig L. Hayes Show. And until then, here's a reminder from Mr. Talbot Snow.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.